I've been thinking about this for a few weeks now, and I've come to the conclusion that we as a society, as a human collective, that we're very, very dishonest about loneliness. We've come to paint it as some sort of moral failing or something that only people who haven't done the work experience, which is why when someone tells us that they're lonely, we can't even wait. We don't even wait a second before we start bombarding them with anecdotal advice like, you can be alone without being lonely. Just learn to love your own company. Work on your self-confidence. Get out there. Make new friends. Do you have a hobby? No? Take a class. Granted, this can be practical advice, but then what happens when the pottery class is over, when the friends go home or the event is over? The truth is, a lot of us still feel lonely because a lack of friends or a lack of hobbies might not actually be the reason why we are lonely. What about those of us who feel the loneliest when we're around people? I know that the people who give this kind of advice mean well. Heck, I might have even given it to somebody at some point in time. But the problem with this kind of advice is that it's based on too many assumptions, too much generalization. The truth is, loneliness doesn't have one standard cause, and it's not limited to a specific group of people or a specific type of people. It's just like every other human emotion. It's just part of the human experience. When a person is lonely, it means that they feel that their inherent needs for intimacy and companionship aren't being met. And as we know, there are different types of intimacy and there are different types of companionship, which means that a person can feel completely content with themselves and yet seek and yearn for intimacy outside of themselves. That's why you can be overflowing with self-love. You can be the chief and king of self-confidence and yet struggle with loneliness as a result of other things. You can have the best friends in the world, the best chosen community, and still experience loneliness in regards to the state of your romantic life. And the opposite is also the case. You can have a nice romantic relationship and feel a sense of yearning, a sense of loneliness for a lack of community outside that partnership. Some of us feel lonely because we don't have the kind of parental support we crave, while others feel lonely because, they want the love and bond of a child but can't have it. Like, there are so many neurodivergent people who deal with a very distinct type of loneliness that stems from feeling like oddballs and being ostracized or completely feeling like outsiders the entirety of their lives. Go out there, make eye contact, be magnetic, keep your shoulders high, try to talk to at least one new person a day. All these things do not address the isolation, the exhaustion that comes with never belonging, always being misunderstood, or feeling like an alien, not because you did anything wrong, but just because you just can't fit. You try, but you just can't fit. You just feel like an outsider no matter what you do. These kinds of loneliness, they stay with you. Loneliness is not a sign that you're broken. And it's not a sign that you're in need of healing. Yes, in some cases, it can be a signal pointing you towards deep-seated issues, but sometimes it really is just based on facts. We need to stop giving loneliness this unique, separate platform, to stop treating it like an other, separating it from other emotions as if there's something special or something different about it. It's really careless and, in my very humble opinion, logically and emotionally unintelligent. And I would really like to live in a world where we focus less on judging it and trying to get rid of it and trying to cure it because it's seen as this massively negative thing, but instead focus more on learning to live with it, finding healthy ways to cope with it. Just like you learn to manage your anxiety if you live with anxiety like I do, or just like you learn to deal with stress, grief, sadness, I think we need to learn to live with loneliness, to flow with it, because some types of loneliness may never go away. And if you do not learn how to manage your loneliness, if you don't learn how to live with your loneliness, you're prone to fall into acts of desperation and acts that make you feel devalued. Instead of trying to drown out our yearning, our pain, I think we need to start spending more time to find out our whens, our hows, our whys, our triggers. We start looking for ways to accept and integrate the things we cannot change, learning to honor the ebbs and flows of our loneliness, observing it instead of what is wrong with me. It's more like, it's 6 p.m. today, Tuesday evening, and I'm feeling lonely because I would like someone to cuddle with, someone that I love and someone who really loves me to cuddle with. Now, if I respect that what I'm looking for is someone who loves and respects me to cuddle me, I know that if I go and get a cuddle from someone who hates me and treats me like shit, that loneliness doesn't go away. I still am in the same position, But now there's an added emotion of me doing something that makes me feel worse. So why don't we lean into our whys and our facts rather than just doing just about anything to distract yourself from the fact that you're lonely? Personally, I just sit with my loneliness and I just cry if I need to cry. I let it be because that is valid. There's no shame in being lonely. You haven't committed a crime. You haven't failed. You haven't done anything. You haven't set anyone on fire. Like, if your loneliness stems from a lack of parental intimacy, no amount of friends, no number of friends can save you from that. You can only just keep nurturing yourself, keep parenting yourself. And if something happens in your life where you feel like you need a more adult to talk to, all you can do is mourn. Yes, allow yourself to go through that mourning, through feeling that loss, and that is so valid. If I want to be held and touched by someone who loves me romantically, my friends can't do that for me. Why should I be ashamed to admit that, to say that out loud? It's okay for us to be hungry and thirsty and still be seen as a healthy, sane person, but it's not okay to be lonely without being barraged with unsolicited advice, without being psychoanalyzed. It's just there's so many people in relationships who are desperately lonely, and there's so many single people who rarely are. So telling people to work on themselves first if they want a relationship is not only illogical, but is very tone deaf. If everyone in relationships truly worked on themselves first, the epidemic that is toxic relationships won't exist. Because there are so many people in relationships who do not have a drop of self-respect. And no one bats an eyelid because we are so enamored, so obsessed with romantic relationships, with romantic love. But God forbid your single friend, your friend who has been single for the last 5 years, opens their mouth to say, you know, I think I want companionship. People begin to choke on air. Because babe, you have to learn to love yourself first. You're not missing out on anything. As if self-love is a replacement for romantic love. And it's so funny how this advice always almost comes from people who have actually never stopped long enough to recognize loneliness in their lives, because they're always jumping from one relationship to another. People who do not have the capacity to be alone. But they're always the first to open their mouths to just spew nonsense at other people. Let's start practicing letting people share their feelings of loneliness. Just like we allow them to share their joys, their fears, their pains, their struggles. Let's start allowing people to just talk without shaming them directly or indirectly, without projecting anecdotal garbage at them, without throwing nonsense at them. Loneliness is such a personal experience. So when someone actually approaches you to say, you know, I've been feeling lonely, I want you to resist the urge to let your inner guru come out. Put a lid on your desire to become a public speaker and actually just listen. Listen to their whys. And unless they ask you for advice, I would say don't give any advice. Just ask them how you can help them through it, or if there's anything you can do to help them through it. There's just different types of people with different pain points, and there's some things you can never understand unless you're someone who has that kind of experience or who has to move through the world in that way. It really breaks my heart that there's so many people struggling for so many reasons and we don't even give them a chance. We just shove self-help and self-love down people's throats as if two or more things can't be true at the same time. I'm not even asking for empathy. I'm asking for let your brain work. Use it wisely. You know, think before you speak. Because I want to say empathy, but it's just such a overcrowded place right now. Everybody's going on about empathy. Meanwhile, we're all treating each other like trash. Let's stop hurting each other. Let's stop dismissing each other. Let's truly start holding space for each other. And maybe just lessen assumptions, you know? Just minimize it. There's so many things you don't know, and that's okay. Anyway, as always, it's been an absolute pleasure. My name is Pearl, and I'll see you in the next video. On top of spaghetti, coupled with cheese.